Kyle Adams, aka Captain Spish. She knew I helped dogs and saved their lives. That's confidence and strength in the dog world.
Teach me, oh wise one.
Because nothing learns through punishment. It learns through reward. And a lot of times I'm dealing with dogs no one else will help.
Oh my.
Every dog should have these basic skills.
Yeah, I mean, trust seems like the biggest step for any of this.
You defeat the energy. You pop that bubble of anxiety. We know you're scared. Here's what you do about your fear. That's true power in the dog world. Anyhow, well, welcome to the Captain Spish Dog Behavior Podcast.
Yes.
I'm your captain, Captain Spish, also known as Kyle Adams. This is T.Tommy.
Yep, first mate T.Tom. If you can't tell, he is the captain.
And we're talking to Kimberly AF. At least that's why I know you on Facebook. But if you want to introduce yourself.
I'm Kimberly, and I am the creator of all of the Bull Terrier Freak AF stuff on Instagram and Facebook and kind of on YouTube.
And anytime AF is at the end of something, I have to follow it. That's just my rule. So, because I'm a little extra.
Only a little?
Just a little. Kimberly knows. She's been friends with me for far too long on Facebook. Before I even knew she did any content, I was like, oh, that's a cool meme. I'll have to follow that lady.
There was a severe lack of Bull Terrier memes.
There was, and you had your profile photo as a Bull Terrier, and that's an automatic friend. So.
Oh yeah, that's kind of the way it goes in the Bull Terrier community. Bull Terrier profile picture, and it's like, okay, yes.
Click. I just randomly clicked all the Bull Terrier icons when I joined Facebook.
Yep.
And it turned out I friended all of the most critical Bull Terrier people like that were on Facebook, including like the people that owned the Spuds McKenzie dog, the original one.
Oh, nice.
Rufus's family, the one that won Best in Show, which was shocking. What was that, eons ago, 2016?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that's really eons ago.
And of course, Summer and Danielle and so on, and you. So anyhow, we're going to talk about Bull Terriers, which is, I love all dogs. You work with dogs long enough, you realize that they're all pretty much the same in all the good ways. But at the same time, Bull Terriers are still my favorite. They just match me, my lifestyle, my energy. And I don't know about you, but I find dogs that are too easy to train to be boring.
Yep.
And I like my dogs to challenge me to rethink the way I do things and to be creative. And it helps keep me on my toes for my clients.
Yep.
So
yeah, I get very bored easily, and I find that I actually get puppy fever the second that one of my older dogs starts to know everything. Once they get to that point where we have our routine down, it's like, God, I'm so bored. I need another puppy.
Oh no.
None of my Bull Terriers are that easy, but all of the ones I've owned were, behavior cases. So they never reached that point where they're just trained and really, easy, and you did all your work and now they're good. Yay. It's like, no, this dog will forever have fear issues or, some kind of, like Kobun is, he has hyperarousal syndrome. I don't know if you're familiar.
Yeah.
I've seen it in a few dogs, Bull Terriers especially, in varying levels. So Mimo had it. My other Bull Terrier passed last year, but not as bad as Kobun. But he's managing.
Yeah, he seems like a good boy. Seems like you do a lot with him.
He tries. Oh yeah, he's busy. He goes coast to coast and travels with me everywhere. And Bull Terrier, in my experience, usually are very good at being your adventure partner. They're highly adaptable. They can handle pretty good amount of heat, pretty good amount of cold. Kobun doesn't handle heat as well. He's only 50 pounds and he's dark. So his muscle keeps the heat in, but he's so small he heats up quick. And he doesn't dissipate it very quick. So I have to watch that.
What you're trying to say is he's a hot dog.
Hey.
I'll see myself out.
Like, that's it.
All right, that was the show.
It's like,
folks.
well, that just ruined it. Any chance we'll ever have for further viewers is terrible puns.
So Tommy is a good friend of mine for what, 17 years, maybe a little more, 18. He's a college friend. So we were fast buds, and he's been in all of my video projects one way, shape, or form. That when I was at the College of International Broadcasting,
International College of Broadcasting.
Yeah, I don't know. It's been 18 years. But
it's that mouthful, like trying to say that whole degree and whatnot is like,
yeah.
Don't do
should
it.
try and do an acronym for it someday.
He does the whole spiel. I'm like, I have an associate's degree in radio and television broadcasting.
It's actually an associate's degree in the applied science of radio and television communications, and that's why I don't have any use for it.
I use it every day.
I say, but I'm in customer service right now. I don't use it. So.
In customer service, you use anything?
Yeah, I use a computer with 2 monitors. I have a headphone so I could talk to people, and it lets me catch up on my reading.
Well, that's always important.
So, Kimberly, what's your background, or what would you like to share about yourself?
Oh,
other than you're a grand meme lord.
I don't know. I always kind of figured I was just a bit of an oddball. I never went to college.
It's not necessary.
I was just gonna say, you saved yourself money is what it is.
Yeah, kind of. My dad used to be like, oh, you should go to college for art. I'm like, I'm never gonna make enough money in art to, go to college for something like that. So when I was a teenager, I was like, I'll just bum around and do whatever. And I was always interested in photography, and I met a friend who worked for Fox as a cameraman, and he's like, you should look into photography. And I'm like, how am I going to use photography? And he was telling me about this was back before influencers and Instagram was a thing. And he's like, oh, you should get in contact with some of these smaller product companies online. Like they need photographers, and they need people to advertise for them. So I literally did the whole boomer thing where I literally just emailed all of these companies, and I was like, hey, do you need a photographer? What are you paying for your images? Because I'll charge less and I'll do more. And I literally that's literally how I got all of my jobs.
Beat them bushes.
Just by doing that. But this, like I said, this was back before Instagram. This was back before when people still had like the little Nokia flip phones. People weren't
back when we used to call it a camera phone, and now that's what comes with phones now.
Yeah, like it was, I was a person that had a decent camera, and I was so excited to be making like $35 to $50 a month. And then I just built up and built up and built up to
that's
the point that I can do whatever I want in terms of photography now. So
yeah, I started my business 16 years ago making $10 a week.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like I want to earn just that small amount of money, but at the same time, it was 2008, 2007-ish,
Mm-hmm.
and the job market didn't exist, and I'd rather make next to nothing doing something I care about than just doing nothing.
Yeah.
Or being trapped in a fast food job or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I was lucky enough to be able to start.
And back then I had always wanted Bull Terriers. Like that was ever since the original Toy Story movie came out. I was like in love with the neighbor dog that ate the toys.
You like trouble, that's why.
Yeah, I looked
that's
at
why
that
you're here
dog
with
and
us.
I'm like, that's the one that I want. That is the one.
I saw that dog and I knew Bull Terriers very well by that point, and it didn't look like a Bull Terrier to me. Like it didn't click to me. When someone's like, that was a Bull Terrier.
She says that, and I'm playing the scenes in my head from that, like putting the alien on his nose, and I'm just like, I'm seeing a connection now.
Well, back then,
my Bull Terriers.
I had no idea, like, dog breeds because I think I was like 6 at the time. I didn't really know dog breeds until we moved next to a bookstore and they sold Dog Fancy magazines and they had Dog Fancy one. And I'm like, oh my God, there's a
So
dog
wait,
fancy.
wait, wait. You were telling me you were 6 years old when the Toy Story movie first came out?
Around 6 or 7, yeah.
Oof.
Oh,
Yeah.
right in my geriatrics.
Yeah, I think let's see, Toy Story, that came out in 95.
Yeah, I
So
was
I was about
12.
no, I was about 8, yeah.
Yeah, I
So
was 12. I turned 13 when I was 96. I know because that was the year of my bar mitzvah.
I was gonna say because I'm 36 now, and yeah, that was in 95. I was born in 87, so yeah, I was about 8 years old then.
87.
Yep.
Most of my cars have been older than you. So
Is this the part where I'm supposed to say probably most of your women too? But
no. Everyone I've been interested in has been at least 3 years younger than me until Trish.
Cradle Robert, got it. Sound like my ex-wife.
Well,
I
I
say
don't like
that, but
them that young.
she's only like a year older than me. So
Trish is 6 months, almost exactly older than me. Is someone clapping?
yeah, I heard that. Is that clapping or is that
It's
that
one
your
of the
cat
Bulls.
trying to
It's
Oh,
a
your
that's
cat trying to lick
actually
the light socket again?
that's actually my ice maker.
Oh, I thought it was Bull Terriers getting into something. That's my first instinct.
Yeah.
Yeah, gotta keep hydrated. So, so that's how far back your Bull Terrier love goes. I don't even remember when it started for me because my mom was always. Well, I learned most of what I know from, at least what I originally knew from my mom. She was known as like the dog whisperer before Caesar was born, and all the animals would come follow her home. And when people
Aw.
wanted to abandon a dog, she'd come home to dogs and cats chained up to her porch.
Aw.
And that continued all the way until I was a toddler. Stuff like that would happen, and so I grew up knowing dog breeds. Like
Mhm.
being taught that's this dog and that's that dog, and mom telling me about the traits and personalities that tend to be with those breeds, and she always wanted and loved bull terriers, but she raised pit bulls at the time, so that was where I first got my real start. And when I would disappear, my mom would know where I was. I was in the puppy pen,
Aw.
covered in puppies and everything puppies make, which you know. And that's kind of where I got my beginning with dogs in general. And uh really my first experience with bull terriers was in 98 when we got our first bully that I remember, which is her name was Tribbles.
Aw.
Yeah, shout out to Star Trek.
Yeah, the cup has no inclination with that whatsoever.
This is the famous cup at Starbucks. On the other side there's a transporter pad, and you put something hot in there and Captain Kirk appears.
Ooh.
Really?
Yeah, but you're
That
safe.
is
He's not
cool.
real. He won't shoot you. He
Yeah,
comes in
and then of
peace.
course
Shoot
I've
the
got
crowd.
a Spock one as well.
Yeah, he
So
whispers in Spock's ear. I just gave him that for Christmas. But
Nice.
yeah, the bull terrier. When people ask me like, what are they like? I always have to tell them, well, it depends on which one you meet.
Yep.
The spectrum of personalities is so broad, and then the probability of doggy autism is so high. And I mean that literally, not necessarily as a joke. I think more recent research has shown that that's actually where a lot of the quirks and things come from, and the same genetic marker that causes trancing behavior, which if you don't know what that is, I've never had a bull terrier, and I've had a lot. I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of bull terriers, and I've never had one that trances.
Really?
But they will, anything that tickles their back, like hanging clothes or um, and or tree branches and so on, they'll get into a state where they'll kind of go meditative, and they'll just hover and move. They'll herky jerk like they're some
Mhm.
weird stepper motor. And it turns out the first dog in my household that trances is my wife's greyhound, Ori, and he's definitely special. So that same genetic marker seems to be linked to what they can tell is like a doggy version of autism.
Yep, I've been doing a lot of research on that, but very carefully.
Yeah,
I've seen
exactly.
a lot of people seem to be pretty upset by it.
Well, that's their problem.
Why?
That's bigotry.
Yeah, I don't understand, to be honest. If you look at the studies on humans, since we don't have a lot on dogs, I've been looking at like children and stuff, since the biochemical markers are identical that they found in bull terriers. If you look at the human studies, especially in children, they suffer from a lot of the same gut issues and very similar skin issues and
sensory issues,
a lot of like emotionally impulsive or
anxiety disorders.
It's like I have been following along a lot, especially with like the skin and gut, because I know in bull terriers that can be
well, that's clinical. It's something you can help them with.
Yeah, like it can, if we could just put more research into this in bull terriers and in dogs in general, like
well,
what could we find out about skin issues and gut issues for
well, there's so much stigma with mental health issues in general, and especially developmental ones. And I know my generation, aka like old ass millennial,
old ass millennial,
we use the R word. I think you know what I mean a lot back then, and the boomers did too. And I know that I've had to rewire my brain about all that, unlearn the stupidity, but I think a lot of people haven't, or don't, or thought they have and haven't, and they associate any kind of developmental issue, including and especially autism, with the R word. And there's just so much wrong all about that. And I think that's why research and owners of dogs are offended at it, because they think that's what you're basically saying.
Yeah.
And it's not whatsoever. And in my opinion, autism isn't, as far as I know, and I've done some research, that I don't even consider it an abnormality necessarily. I think it's just, and I think normal is obviously an illusion, but try to quantify it. No one can. But it's just an alternate form of a way a mind works, especially depending on where the spectrum is. Now, at some point, it can seem like a disability because of the way our world is set up.
Yeah.
But that's not the individual's fault. That's the way the world's set up. That's like thinking a monkey's terrible at living in the world when it's trying to swim constantly, and all the fish think it's a disabled fish, but but the fish won't do well in a tree either. So but anyhow, so that's one thing that people should probably be aware of with bull terrier and be prepared for and be okay with, is strange behavior. And if you're a weirdo like I am, and like you seem to be, you proclaim to be, then they just match you well. And that's something I talk to clients all the time about. You need to get a dog that connects with you, that you can accept that they're a mirror of yourself, because they are, regardless of the dog and the person. And a lot of behavior issues I've seen stem from people not liking what they see in their dog because they see themselves in their dog. And I have to do therapy with the people, because in my opinion, dog behavior work is more like people work, helping the people understand themselves and accept their emotions, and understand their dog and accept their emotions, and then help their dog and themselves both have a responsible reaction to those behaviors, to those feelings. So it looks like our Zoom ending will end in 10 minutes. Yeah, because I'm cheap and we're on the free version, but I don't know how long when it started counting. It must have been
probably when you started it.
But anyhow,
you can just fire up another one, can't you?
Probably.
Oh, well.
You just edit them together.
Hopefully it's not actually recording your meeting will end in 10 minutes, because
I don't know.
If it is, it's okay. I don't mind being the sign like, hi, I am your co-host. Your meeting will end in 10 minutes.
I don't think it will. Hopefully it's a layer like I'm not picking your nose right now with the cursor. Anyway. So yeah, we'll start up another one if you want to do that. If it allows me to, I don't know, but just in case, it's been nice talking to you, and
we'll have to do this again.
We will. I'll just send you another invite in a minute. We'll see how that works. If not, we can do a phone interview.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Sounds good.
We do a lot of fluff here. Sorry, we have too much fun.
Well, that wasn't much of an interview. It's like, hi, I was into photography. All right, that's great. See you later.
That's great. Now, okay, out of here.
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, then now we do recording. Good thing he reminds me. That's one reason Tommy's here. I'm just a
I'm here to
talent. I'm not
remind you of how
smart.
to do your job. Got it. At least the technical aspects. I can't tell you how to work with dogs or anything like that.
Well, that's technical sometimes too. So, so you're primarily a photographer, and is dog training like a profession or a semi-profession, or is it a hobby or just a passion or all the above?
I kind of started being interested in dog behavior and dog training with my very first bull terrier. He ended up, I was 18, well, 17, 18 when I got him. And he did not come from the best breeder.
So that was like 5 years ago.
A little longer than that. And he did not come from the best breeder, and he ended up having resource guarding. Well, he was big. I think he was close to 40 pounds at the 3-month-old range.
Wow.
He was a very big dog, and
Cohen was 52 right now.
And he started having some very severe resource guarding. And at the time where I live, we're not very accessible to things. I don't think there was a single dog trainer in the entire upper portion that I could find in Upper
You live in
Michigan.
the UP.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that existed until I was like 25 years old.
So I was just basically asking people online, and back then Caesar Milan was huge and everybody was telling me to alpha roll him.
I'll alpha roll my eyes.
That was the advice I was getting, was to alpha roll him. Well, no shocker that he ended up getting worse. I did in fact try to alpha roll him, and it got to the point where he was, if it was in the winter time and if somebody came in with snow on their boots, he would start guarding the snow and slush, the dirty snow, off of the boots that dripped on the floor. And if you even so much as walked in from the opposite end of the room, he would chase you down and nail you. Like,
oh wow.
Yeah,
that it was intense. It was very, very intense. And when you try to stop him or put a leash on him, he would just keep jumping at you. And it was like, I can't do this. And I gave him back to the breeders that I got him from. And I just did like a lot of soul searching, because after that, the same people that had told me to alpha roll him were like, well, this is your fault. Like, you're the reason that this happened. And it's like, I did what you guys told me to do. So I spent a couple years just really deep diving into dog behavior, and more especially like aggression, resource guarding, stuff like that. And it just I enjoyed it. Like, it became a passion project. It became, something that I just absolutely loved learning about. And I did consider going to school to become a dog behaviorist a couple years after that.
Yeah, like a PhD veterinary one, or a certified one, or
back then, about the only resource was Animal Behavior College.
Yeah.
So
ABC.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh,
exactly. Knowledge assess.
I thought my pun was bad.
So I had been talking with like a recruiter, someone like that, over the phone, and she's like, well, we only believe positive only. We don't believe in tool use. We don't believe in like balance or corrections. And I'm like, I don't think I agree with that philosophy entirely.
Yeah.
And so I was like, whatever.
I have an opinion, and it may be controversial. I don't think training is behavior, and behavior isn't training, even though technically, if you boil it down to what the word training means, yeah, they're the same. I mean, we're both trying to condition and create new behaviors or reactions. But to me, behavior is far more in depth.
Yeah.
So to me, behavior is the foundation. You're trying to get a deep
Mhm.
understanding of the reasoning a dog is doing what it's doing, like the instincts, the brain chemistry, and the
Mhm.
interaction, the way they view themselves, their psyche, the way they view you. Um, and so you have this foundation of creating a stable mind and a stable, mutual, respectful relationship
Mhm.
where there's communication, and communication isn't preaching, it's listening and
Yeah.
decoding and understanding and then sending a message and it being listened to, decoded, understood, and or not understood, and then invite and so on. And when you have that foundation of a stable mind in you and a stable mind in the dog, and then a stable communication device and
Mhm.
method, then training is the house that's built on that. So to me, training is about creating a new physical action in the dog or adapting one that they already do. So like a function of the dog, like sit, stay, do all
Yeah.
these other things. And the reason I have this opinion is that there's a difference between training and behavior, and that training doesn't fix behavior issues.
Yeah.
Um, because a lot of the client dogs I've worked with are some of the most highly trained dogs that I've ever met. Heavily trained, great sportsmen, rally champions, what is it called? Agility.
Mhm.
Um, and they have severe behavioral issues,
Yeah.
fear, anxieties, biting, resource guarding. Um, and so obviously the training didn't help with that. Now, in my opinion, there's a little overlap because as a behavior expert, when you create a stable mind and so on, when we correct or defeat an action, like slow it down and get the dog's attention, then we need to tell them what to do instead. So anytime you have to tell a dog no, you should tell it what a yes is. What
Yeah.
should you do? When I say don't do that, let's do this, even if it's totally unrelated. So they
Mhm.
know that you have answers, not just don't do that, but here's something you can do that'll make me happy. Here's something you'll do that will make you belong, that won't disrupt the stable mind state of the
Yeah.
group and the people, and so you bring the energy to be more stable and calm
Mhm.
and so on. So to me, that it's more in depth to be
Yeah.
a behavior expert, a behavior worker, and then you lead into a little bit of training. And in my opinion, and I've told clients before too, when they call me and talking about needing behavior help, if someone tells you they're a behavior modification trainer, run for the hills, because I don't believe those exist. This I don't always agree with specialization in like medical field or behavior or anything like that, but in this case it is. And to
Yeah.
me, a trainer saying they can help you with a behavior issue is unethical and stepping on the toes of behavior experts. And
Mhm.
just as much as me saying that I will come and tell your dog I'll teach you how to teach your dog to come sit stay. That's just not my
Yeah.
expertise. And that would be unethical for me to do that. Just like if I give, veterinary advice,
Mhm.
and I'm not a veterinarian. And I tell people that all the time. I can tell them, well, in my experience, or what I might do
Yeah.
is, but talk to your vet because I'm not a vet and I don't know for sure,
Mhm.
right? So I like your videos online about dog behavior. I really love what you brought up recently about certain behaviors being appropriate responses and
Yep.
appropriate behavior. And I've
Mhm.
been telling people that all the time. Well, your dog's right. It's
Yeah.
wrong in what it's doing about it, or it becomes inappropriate in what they're doing about it.
Mhm.
But that's easily solvable. And I
Yeah.
tell people, don't waste your time telling your dog to quit feeling afraid or anxious or anything. No one wants to feel that. They're not trying to feel that. They have no
Mhm.
control over
Exactly.
it. They have a reason for it, just like you would have a reason to be afraid or anxious. But what's the coping skill, right?
Mhm. And that's kind of something that bothers me a lot in regards to I see it very often in like the dog groups, behavior groups on Facebook
Oh, I avoid
for
them.
people. Oh my God, I'm chronically
I'm
online.
part of them, but I avoid them. I'm part of them. So people, if people wrote me in, and even then, I quit giving advice on the internet. It's just like asking to be assaulted.
But I see so many people who are so quick to slap the rage label on bull terriers
Oh boy.
and their behavior, the rage.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
Sudden
they have
onset
rage. They have
aggression, you
rage.
mean?
Yeah, like I see so many people who are so quick to label like resource guarding or um reactivity or anything that
Sleep startle.
they don't understand.
Mhm.
They're just very quick to say, well, my bull terrier had rage. My bull terrier had rage. It's like,
Because it absolves them.
I was gonna say that sounds like you're just labeling it with, oh, it's not me, it's definitely just them. That's
It's
their
unfixable. It's
problem.
not my fault, and I don't want to
Mhm.
spend the money and time to do it, and I'm scared. The
Mhm.
number one rule about dealing any dog, but especially bull terriers, you cannot be afraid of your own dog,
Yep.
and you need emotional discipline to deal with that, and how, to be afraid, accept your fear, and not react based on it. Not no flight, no fight, no fawn, no freeze, right? You have to hold your ground and calm yourself, because if you're not stable and you can't deal with your fear, what are you going to tell your dog?
Mhm.
One of you
And
needs to see the
that's
way out, and
something
they're
that I
not.
see. That's something that I tend to tell a lot of people with bull terriers, especially the first couple of years, is they're not very good at emotional regulation. They're not very good at self-regulating their emotion, and that makes them very difficult when they're young, is because you're doing that for them, and
That's what I
you
tell
have
people.
to be stable in how you react, no matter how much they frustrate you and you have to bring the emotional regulation for both of you until you get good solid footing in what you're doing. And if you can't, you pop them in a crate, you walk away, you scream your head off, and then you go back and you try
That's
again.
part of emotional regulation, is knowing when it's time to decompress, to give yourself a chance to decelerate. And that's actually the first thing when people ask me about bull terriers. The first thing I tell them is they come completely unpre-programmed.
Yep.
They don't come knowing how to deal with their feelings. Like you said, they're not emotionally regulated. They don't come pre-understanding to even look to you to listen a lot of times. Sometimes they do. Of course, this is general. But a lot of the bull terriers, you have to learn how to be something that is to be listened to.
Yep.
And teach them how to look to you to listen to you. Otherwise, you don't exist.
Yep.
And if you become emotional about that, you become something to be ignored. So I teach a lot of my clients how to not be something to be ignored, not to waste your words, not to waste your emotional energy, and to be like a rock in the ocean, and all the waves to strike upon you. And maybe in 1,000 years it might erode you down, but in the meantime, you should be unaffected, and you can't be a flapping emotional flag in the wind.
Yep.
Because one of you needs to say what needs to be done, and it's not going to be the dog. And if it is the dog, then you know the outcome.
So what I'm hearing from both of you in regards to this is, if you want a bull terrier, you need to be patience beyond patient.
You need to already
with
have
it
an
and
understanding of
whatnot.
dog behavior, just to
Kind of,
start.
yeah.
Oh well, then I'm screwed. I'm just done.
And a lot of people instinctually can figure out dog
Yeah.
behavior with a dog, because you want to listen, you love your dog, and I give a lot of my clients that credit. And but when you have an abnormality, that's a speed bump, where you, instead of just going with the flow and knowing instinctually how to deal, you have to then know how to actually navigate in the mechanics of certain problems.
Yeah.
And that's where people like us come in.
I was gonna say, so that sounds like what you were doing and whatnot, where you said you were looking at the degree, all that kind of thing, and it was kind of like, yeah, I think I could kind of do this on my own and whatnot, and that's essentially where you went with this.
Kind of. The animal behavior college, I didn't quite agree with their philosophy in entirely force free.
It's incomplete.
Yeah, like you don't tell a dog no, you don't really prevent them from doing anything, you don't force anything upon them. And while that's awesome in theory, if you have a dog that all they need is just a little bit of pressure to be able to stay in a stable home with an owner that can take care of them, in my opinion, you're better off applying that negative pressure to some degree than just, pushing them along to somebody else. Because
I explain it to people like a type of, it's like dance, where you're in the lead,
yeah,
and the other person, you can teach them to dance, but still in the moment you need to give them cues and
Yeah.
give them pushes and even support them when they fall or lift them up to do certain moves, and that's not force, that's not
Yeah.
violence, but it requires a certain amount of assertion and physical guidance and to block them from going too far somewhere and know when they're about to trip, and it's a partnership.
Yeah.
It's not force for the sake of force. It's force with the backing of calmness, the desire to understand, and the ready to be gentle. And so I tell clients that you have to push back, but only just enough to get what you want. And if they really push back against that, then it's time for you to kind of just hold your ground or even just back off. Like,
Yeah.
because your message of what you are and who you are is far more important. And what
Mhm.
I am and who I am is guiding, gentle, and unrelenting, but
Yeah.
not forceful, ignoring your cues,
Exactly.
respecting them for as an individual and who they are, but knowing they're
Mhm.
also a dog and they don't know what's really going on or what they're causing, and you're helping them be aware. And so there's that push-pull
Yeah.
that nothing's overriding anyone, and
Mhm.
you're not worried about who's dominant, who's in control, because that's a bunch of BS.
Yep.
Dogs don't want control. They actually are happiest when someone else takes care of things they don't understand.
Yeah.
And that's where we come in, and that help them also, because I know dogs, certain ones I've worked with
Mhm.
know when they're part of the problem or the whole problem, but they don't know what else to do, so they get
Yeah.
stuck in an instinctual cycle, and we have to derail them, which sometimes requires a poke or a
Yeah.
light slap or something, but it's not with anger or fear. It's just a,
Yeah.
hey, stop that, no, or to defeat what they're doing so they don't harm another.
Mhm.
um but then it's immediate gentleness to guide. Hey, I know that just startled you what I just did, but it's for the sake of a message. So
Yeah.
this is how you not make a threaten an individual that then makes them a threat back to you. Here's how you can end at least your part of the cycle where you're causing problems, right?
Exactly.
And then they also see you, if they're not the whole problem, that you, once you calm them down, go and deal with what triggered them. And I tell
Mhm.
clients all the time, they need to see you not just deal with them, but then deal with what triggered them, so they know you
Yeah.
understand the whole picture and that you stabilize the entire situation, and then you're just going to focus on them.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
a lot of people think that corrections is just crank and yank. Just they think it's just crank and yank, and it's like you put in a lot of work before you know even apply a correction like that. Like a lot of dogs, for the most part, if you're working with them, you teach them what that means. It's not just, I'm slapping a prong on this dog and I'm just gonna crank and yank it and see what happens.
Yeah,
Like, no, that's not
it's
how it is.
nonverbal communication, and if you're doing what you just described, that's describing a weapon.
Yeah,
And anything
exactly.
can be a weapon: a
Mm-hmm.
harness, a flat collar, a
Rolled up
pat.
newspaper.
Well, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what a weapon is the attitude behind it and the lack of intent for communication. If
Mm-hmm.
it's just to force and physically force the dog to physically do what you ask without any intent to communicate to
Yep.
their brain, yeah. And I tell clients too, if you have to correct, like use a physical correction, either if it's a poke or a leash correction, that start gauging how much force you use and where your dog is. And the
Yeah.
goal is to either meet and defeat their intensity, or if they're so intense, you have to divide your correction into multiples instead of one big one that'll be too forceful, like a big, huge yank because they're so forceful on you. You can divide it into
Mm-hmm.
three littler ones. It's the same
Yeah.
thing. It defeats energy.
Mhm.
And if you're not sure how much to correct, so if they're at a 10 and you don't want to be at a 10, try inviting them down. So undercorrecting usually will solve more problems than it
Mm-hmm.
won't. And if you undercorrect and it doesn't get the effect, increase it a little bit.
Yeah.
But if you overcorrect, that causes more problems
Mm-hmm.
than undercorrecting ever will not solve. So just whatever intensity you think you need to be, dial it down a little bit and start there. And a lot of times they'll invite the dog down because that's your goal, is to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
Calm down, slow down, or listen to me, not you're gonna do what I say.
Yeah.
Big difference, but it can sound like and seem different.
Mm-hmm.
Just like discipline and punishment is not synonymous. They're completely different things. To me, punishment is I'm emotionally unstable and upset. You did something that made me mad. I'm going to hurt you back. It's retaliation.
Yeah.
There's no communication. There's no intent to communicate. There's no message except for I'm crazy and mad.
Yeah. Exactly.
Discipline is that's not good for you or me. I don't like you destroying what you destroyed, or that's not good. How do I communicate to you what you should be doing instead, what you should chew on instead, or how your response to this visitor should be, and how do I get that across to you? And then that's what I do. I mean, and even if it includes a poke or a push or a yank, it's with the intent of snap out of it. Don't do that. Look to me.
Yeah.
So I can give you an answer so we can know what to do in this situation. Right?
Exactly.
And that's not negative reinforcement. The people don't even understand.
Yep.
They associate emotionally negative or emotionally positive with negative reinforcement or positive reinforcement. And just because it may give you an emotional negative feeling to correct a dog or or to see someone do it, correct a dog, doesn't mean it's negative reinforcement. That's I'm going to make a whole video on positive and negative reinforcement. And I say it in every single, it's kind of a joke now to me anyway. I say it in every single episode. Brains, people, animals, they don't learn through punishment. They learn only through reward.
Yeah.
So I always say that if police were running around giving people cash for going the speed limit, you know how many fewer speeders there would be? Because that works. That would teach.
Yeah.
That
But
should be a
instead
nice
of we'll
side
punish
hustle.
you, people are like, oh, I'll just pay this off and I'll keep speeding.
Yeah.
Because the reward is the speeding, right? The fun of it or the getting around quick or the aggression of it depends on how much of a jerk you are. So yeah, I agree with you. I looked into animal behavior college too because so many people in this field or people looking for people like me are looking for certifications, and that's totally fine. It's good. What certifications do is give you an idea of the person's foundation, like education, but it doesn't guarantee who that person is or what they know.
I think from my perspective with that kind of thing, if you see somebody with a degree or any kind of thing like that, it kind of gives you reassurance like, oh, this person, might have a good handle of what they're talking about. Whereas you could look at somebody else like, oh, they don't have something, they're not certified. Should I really trust anything they have to say?
Well,
and I mean, I know that's not the case, but I could kind of see it as like the outside perspective of,
I understand that. That's why I was looking at, any kind of certification. But what I found was that it really isn't necessary. My years of experience, my knowledge, just talk to me. You want to know what I know and how I work? Ask. Observe. You can come. I have clients and future clients and past clients and anyone that wants to come and see what I do on a consultation. Join me in the past on consultations. So you just come and see, learn. That's what this podcast is about. Learn. I don't care if it's free. I'm not here purely to make money. That's how I pay my bills and all. But I'm here mainly to help people to help their dogs. And my mentors, which were PhD behavioralists and so on in the past, they're like, oh, I hate people. It's like, well, how are you going to do this job? I love people. I know as a group they can kind of stink, but individually, people are amazing and wonderful. And the vast majority of them, even when I've gone on consultations when people were being abusive to their dogs, they called me and they love their dogs enough to have me come in and spend the money and time that deserves the respect to not attack them over that. And I know that we all like what you did could be considered abuse to offer roll the dog. But people don't know. That's why I'm here. I'm not here to judge them and tell them what they did wrong other than if they can fix it. I'm here to not confront them and close them up and make them defensive over themselves and their activities. Usually I'd be like, oh, hold on, let's do this. And when they see that I didn't confront what they did or judge them, I just show them a better way, and that way was peaceful and more effective. What are they going to do now? They're going to do what I asked, what I showed them to do.
Exactly.
Right? So do you go to homes and help anyone, or just mostly content to help online? They're both valid
mostly
for
content.
Sure.
Back when I started really researching dog behavior, it was kind of funny because back then you didn't have as many of the dog training resources that you do now, and a lot of the like dog psychology sort of stuff. It wasn't as widely available to the general public.
I still have to educate people about it.
Yeah, like there wasn't as much. So when I started, I had to do a lot of digging. I had to, you know, send out like these creeper emails to people where I was like, you know, hey, I seen you online and I really like what you had to say. Can you tell me more? Stuff like that. And
I got a lot of those emails. Not from you, maybe, but
I gotta ask real quick, how effective was that? I mean, did you have a nice variation of, oh my God, getaway stalker to, yeah, sure, here's the info?
I got some people who were like, who are you? But then at the same time, you know, a lot of people do like to, you know, educate and talk about the things that they know. So I did get a lot of people who were like very open to talking
that's
about
good.
that. And because this information wasn't the norm and it wasn't as widely, you know, talked about as it is now and passed around, a lot of the stuff that I told people was actually met with a lot of anger and hate when I would talk about it online. And there was a lot of people who used to tell me that I was an idiot. Like, for example, I got started a lot in resource guarding. And one of the things that I used to talk to people about resource guarding is if you have a puppy that's starting to show resource guarding and you want to kind of curb that, you're not going to, because back then the most common thing was to put your hand in your puppy's food bowl, take the food out, you know, away from it all the time and put it back. And I started telling people, don't do that.
That sounds like a very negative way of
yeah,
doing
like it's
that.
gonna
actually, technically, that is a mild form of negative reinforcement.
yeah, and
say,
it can teach them
like,
to, you know,
Well, if they're
react
worried about the food being
worse.
taken away and then you make that happen, or they're afraid, like your dog sounded like he was afraid of being attacked over objects.
Yep.
And then when you rolled him over, you attacked him. You confirmed the behavior
Exactly.
and the reasoning and the instincts. You made it, you solidified that.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it can't be undone, but yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and so I
People
started
are-
telling people, you know, when you approach your dog's food,
Mhm.
give them high value food. Like just step up there, don't say anything, toss something really high value, step away. Come up, keep doing that, doing that, doing that. And as soon as your dog starts to, you know, anticipate good things and look at you, you can get a little bit closer and get a little bit closer and so on and so forth.
Mhm.
And that advice was met with so much negativity from people because back then it was, if your dog is resource guarding, you give them a come to Jesus moment. You don't allow them to possess their food bowl at all. You don't let them have their food, basically.
And all that's based on that outdated alpha
Mhm.
bull crap that was debunked within months of it being released in the 70s.
Yep. And this
people
was
Mm.
early, well, mid 2000s, like
Mhm.
2010 to like 15.
Mhm.
And so now it's kind of the opposite, where people do, you know, all of this information is starting to, like, you know, people know how to help with resource guarding. Like that's kind of becoming more the common practice is, you know, associating positives with that. But back then, a lot of my advice got attacked. A lot of my training or behavior advice was just attacked. I had a friend who she ended up taking in an Australian cattle dog puppy, and he was really bad resource guarder.
Mhm.
And she was down in Florida, and I was telling her, you know, okay, well, you're gonna teach him to associate you coming near his food with positives. And so I was giving her advice. Well, she ended up going to a vet behaviorist who said, do not follow her advice. That's garbage advice. And just lock your dog in a room when you feed him. Wait 2 hours to make sure that he's absolutely done. And that's it. They charged her $100 for that advice.
Wow.
Now, I
And
like it. Now, I don't have any degree of education that you two have, and just the way that you're describing it tells me that it's like that's just no.
yeah, right.
Like because if they're, you know, protective of the resources that they have, and you're just taking that away, it's like, wouldn't that make you more guarded? Like, oh, I've really got to watch myself now. This person, is supposed to be taking care of me, and they're taking everything from me. This doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah.
So was that disheartening at all when you got that kind of backlash over that kind of advice, especially when you're first really giving it out and whatnot?
And that was ultimately what made me decide to look into photography over dog training or behavior in doing that.
It's a tough field, I'll tell you.
I was met with a lot more pushback from people. And these were people who, were like, well, I've been training dogs and owning dogs for years and years and years. You don't know what you're talking about. And it was like,
it shows their insecurities.
Yep. And I was in my early 20s. So I was like, well, I guess you're right. I guess I'll just work with my own dogs. And, if somebody comes to me, I'll give them my opinion, but that's it.
Yeah. And that's kind of, and what I find in this field, that a lot of people really don't have confidence in their own knowledge of what they're doing with the dogs, like other behavior experts and trainers, and they see you as such a big threat, and they have to put you down because they're insecure about their own knowledge, and it's more a reflection on them than you. I've never felt the need to do that to anyone when they give bad advice. I'll be like, oh, please don't do that. Here's why. Not, oh, you're an idiot, or I'm a behavior expert. I don't know what I'm doing. You're in more. Well, that's bully behavior, and someone who really knows what they're talking about has absolutely no motivation to talk that way. Just none. So those people I just like, and anyone who listens to their advice or agrees with their bluster, they deserve what they get.
Yeah.
And everyone with intelligence that I'd actually want to work with will see that, my approach and listen to it. So that's the thing about the internet. It's casting pearls before swine, you might say. The people who see the value in it will accept it, and it'll help them. And people who can't or don't, this is what it is.
Well,
yeah, that was kind of why I started my YouTube channel and my Facebook page is, I'll put my information out there. People can take it or leave it. They can run with it.
Absolutely.
I try to mention all of the time on my advice stuff is, don't take this as a 100%, this is how it has to be done. Work off of that, because every dog is different and every, handler is different. And, if you want to tweak and modify what I'm doing because it works better, absolutely go for it, because, you can't be rigid in these things. Dogs aren't rigid.
Because it's a relationship, right?
Yeah,
it's about you. It's about the dog. It's not about me, the advice giver. And I tell clients that, and I'll leave you with this, that, you don't have to be me, because I've had clients even ask me that, well, do I need to be you, or do I need to emulate everything you do? Do I need to video? No. I'll do what I do, and I'll tell you why I do it, and you need to adapt it to yourself. So that's the biggest challenge with this job, is you're there to educate and inspire. You have to inspire trust in you, for one thing, trust in what you say next, trust in what you're going to ask them to do with their dog, and that they have faith that it's going to work, and they keep doing it. And you have to do that all in 2 hours.
Yeah.
And so your approach and the condensation of your knowledge and everything else, without overly condensing or blowing too big, you have to really adapt it to that person and give them confidence that here's how, now you know how to think, now you know what you're seeing, now you know how to think, now you know how to approach it. And because I've had people like, man, can you just come and live with me for a while? And I tell them you wouldn't be able to afford the grocery bill, let alone the hourly bill. And you don't need that. I don't need to hold your hand. Hopefully, if I do my job right here, that you get all this. And now because Tommy, the reason Tommy already recognized that what you said was bad advice that you heard was because he spent hours sitting in this chair listening to me. At least I'd hope that's part of it. And Tommy has good logic in general.
To me, it was just the whole logic standpoint. It's like, if they're guarding what they think is being taken and you take it away, it would be the same thing with a kid. If you're taking something of theirs all the time and they're wanting to guard it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I always try to explain to people. It's like, if you're trying to sit down and eat dinner at the end of the day, and you have somebody coming up and just being like, oh, you can't eat it, and putting their hands all over it, you're going to probably,
I will bite you.
Yeah, exactly.
I was gonna say that person's gonna lose their hand because I gotta eat.
Exactly.
And that's the thing. So the first thing I teach and the last thing I teach at every consultation, basically, or totally or completely, is respect.
Mm-hmm.
And what is respect is seeing things from other people's perspective and not worrying about whether you condone or disagree or condone or reinforce or win or lose about their attitude, except that that's what it is. And what's the best way to convey a better message?
Yeah.
And using that respect, that knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And if you, whatever you want from your dog, you have to give it to them first. You want them to listen? How about you listen?
Mm-hmm.
You want them to obey? How about you be stable and be predictable? It's pretty commonsensical once people are usually like, oh, this is so simple. And I
Yeah.
used to feel so guilty charging people at first because this stuff to me is so but to these other people, it's revolutionary. But anyhow, we're getting close to the end of our time, so I wanted to say thank you for coming on. I know we didn't really talk about bull terriers as much, but this all pertains to it, and I like the subject we came up with. So maybe we can come back and do this another time.
Absolutely.
I mean, yeah, I would love to do that. I'll be a little more prepared with some more questions myself
this
time
because,
well, that and this was kind of last minute. Like, oh, hey, by the way, we're going to do the interview today because everything's working. Like, awesome. No time to prepare. Let's just dive into this.
Well, we switched the Zoom from Riverside because I couldn't get Riverside to acknowledge my mic. But this works perfect.
Hey,
well, like I said, I'm like, if you guys ever want to do anything like this again, that I'm pretty much always open. Like I said, I pretty much just work from home, so I have generally all of my days free. It's very, very rare that I'm like, oh, I can't do it that day. Usually there's a vet appointment or something, but otherwise, I'm pretty flexible with everything. So like, if you guys set up something and just be like, hey, you want to do it today? I'm probably like, yeah, sure, that's fine.
You just fly her down, get a third chair set up here.
A big challenge.
Like that works.
Well, this has been the Captain Spish Dog Behavior Podcast with Captain Spish, Kimberly, with Bull Terrier Freak AF.
Yeah, okay, so real quick, the AF, is it really Kimberly as fuck?
It's actually my middle and last initial.
Wow. I am so sorry.
I told her though online, I was like, I read this as Kimberly as F.
That's what I wanted to ask, like,
that's honestly why I kept it, because I thought it was hilarious. I used to get tagged all the time when people would put as fucking groups randomly by people. They would accidentally tag me with that all the time.
But you know what? If that helps spread your advice, that's like perfect. Like hashtag AF, like.
We'll make sure that we put a link to, like, you'll have to send me links you want me to put in the description on YouTube, because we're just starting out. We have almost no subscribers and you're doing really well, so hopefully you'll help us, and I'd like to help you too. Some people, my listeners, that don't know about you.
Well, I mean, for the people just listening and whatnot, do you have a site or Facebook?
Probably my
YouTube,
Facebook page would be my most active.
All right, what would that be?
Bull Terrier Freak AF on Facebook. Yeah.
Yep. I have it on my on my Facebook business page too.
Awesome.
So the link's up there when I was telling people we're gonna do this. So, well, we'll talk to you next time. Thanks for joining us, Kimberly.
And thank you for having me on. I had a lot of fun.
All right. Excellent.
It's been fun.
Take care.
Bye.
It was unconventional, but it worked.
And I never tell clients, just like I never tell the dogs, not to be scared.
Unfortunately, dogs don't have the ability to just talk it out with you.
See, there's all kinds of different types of bites, but I'll get into that later. What's happened here? How did this start? How can I help you? You reward good behavior and you discourage or redirect bad behavior into good behaviors. Warm talk, anecdotes, stories, get to know me, get to know them.
Yeah.
What you do or don't do with that dog, how you handle that dog, how you think and feel, and what you do with your thoughts and feelings around that dog. And it's going to be for the rest of that dog's life.
You can't just unplug the corgi and plug him back in. I'm going to be open and honest about it. And that was like watching art.